Okay, we've made it to the sixth and final trait of a successful student, at least for this lecture. And the sixth trait is that we are self-aware and self-evaluate. So by this point, you've probably already watched the clip from Scrubs, my favorite ever TV show in the history of TV shows, that we did for our discussion post. And the point of the clip, of course, focuses on the fact that we need to self-evaluate and we need to be self-aware. We need to figure out our strengths and our weaknesses, because how can we possibly get to who we want to be and where we want to be if we don't currently know who we are and where we are? And of course, we can't come up with a pathway or a strategy to get there unless we know where we start, where we are now. So please remember that self-evaluating is not necessarily for others to see, it's for you to see, it's for you to be aware. So let's start off with the definition of self-awareness. What exactly is self-awareness? So let's look at the screen. Let's go over the definition. Self-awareness is having a clear perception of your personality, including your strengths, your weaknesses, your thoughts and beliefs, your motivation, and your emotions, right? So being self-aware allows you to understand others, to understand how others perceive you, including your attitude and your responses to them in that moment. So guys, part of self-awareness definitely involves periodic self-evaluation. And when you evaluate, of course, depends on you. It depends on your goals, but it involves a couple of steps, all right? So when we self-evaluate, we have to know our strengths, what we're good at. We must also know our weaknesses, what we're not so good at. I tend to call them areas for improvement because weakness implies that nothing can be done to change, which is not true. Now, once you have self-analyzed, I encourage you to always use your strengths to your advantage, right? Capitalize on what you're good at. And at the same time, you can't ignore your weaknesses, because if you do so, you're never going to change, you're never going to grow. So while you're using your strengths to your advantage, you also work to start transforming those weaknesses into something better. And who knows, maybe they even become strengths, but certainly they will be better than they were. And the way that you do this, of course, is you come up with a strategy, concrete, measurable steps that you can assess over time. Now this week, obviously, you guys are going to be doing a little bit of self-reflection, and you're going to come up with your own strengths and weaknesses, but also a strategy to work on one of your weaknesses. I really encourage you guys, please take some time to think about yourself. You can even, ask people you trust and who know you if you feel comfortable getting back some of that constructive criticism. But as you do that self-evaluation, just a couple of tips, please. Do try to focus on big picture concepts and also on, concepts that are going to affect you academically and professionally. For this class especially, we're focusing on how is this affecting you in school and college and in your future jobs. I'd also like you to focus on those things, those traits that come from within you, internal traits, rather than attributes that are outside of you, external traits, right? So when we talk about the big picture, the academic, the professional, right? Let me give you an example. In terms of strengths, we aren't referring to the fact that maybe you're good at sports or cooking or fishing or some particular hobby. That doesn't really have too much bearing on your academic and on your future career goals, unless maybe you're going into, kinesiology or culinary arts or forestry, right? So we're not talking about that. In terms of weaknesses, we also aren't referring to what you give into. In terms of instant gratification. So don't tell me your weaknesses are bread, chocolate, Xbox, TikTok, your cell phone, Netflix. Those are things you give into, but it isn't really a quality about you. We want the internal quality about you, right? Also, for strengths, don't refer to things that give you strength, like God or your children. We want to know what you bring to the table, not God or your kids. So internal qualities. And after you're done with all of this, I really want you guys to ask yourself, do I feel more self-aware? Also, do you feel that you have a plan to move yourself forward, because of course I hope so. And I don't want you to stop this process. It's not just doing it once for me to get a grade. I really want you to check in with yourself at the end of the semester to assess where you are at that point, and then periodically keep doing this process, because you should be changing, you should be growing. And the other thing is, please do give yourself credit when you're doing awesome, but if you struggle in some areas, you can regroup, come up with new ways to work on those challenges and on those weaknesses, come up with new strategies and try them out. Above all, okay, remember that we are all of us on this planet are works in progress. We're all striving for excellence, academically, professionally, socially, personally. So don't stop the good fight. Every time we try, we get closer to it. All right, so as our summary for this lecture, what are the keys to the student success puzzle? How do we go about unlocking our potential, our full potential? Well, let's ensure that we accept personal responsibility, that we have self-motivation, that we make a commitment, that we have a positive attitude, mindset, and use positive language, creator language, that we develop strategies to be successful, and that we're self-aware, and that we periodically self-evaluate. Because with these traits, we are one step closer to being awesome students who reach their full potential, who rise to their own expectations, and are excellent.